Imagine for a moment that your country introduces a new form of money, seemingly out of nowhere. Suddenly, every business is required to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. But there's one catch: you never heard about Bitcoin before.
We didn't know anything. I think it's a really human thing.
You ask yourself, what is Bitcoin? How do I use it? And what is a wallet? Yet there is no one to answer all of your questions.
There was no education.
What is so missing in El Salvador to us?
I think it's education, like what is Bitcoin?
I visited the people who want to change that. How? By educating a whole nation about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, en pocas palabras, es el oro digital.
Because the Bitcoin announcement was so revolutionary, a lot of Bitcoiners traveled to El Salvador. One of them was John Dennehy.
I remember that we spoke with our driver a little bit during the ride. We asked him about Bitcoin. You know, I was just generally curious what Salvadorians thought about Bitcoin.
And that was a time when he figured out Salvadorians didn't really know what was happening.
There was a lot of resistance at the beginning because Bitcoin was just dumped into the country as legal tender.
There were so many unanswered questions.
We didn't know anything. I think it's a really human thing.
And there was no education.
John realized that this is a problem, so he wanted to change something.
I invited some Salvadorians that I had met in the previous weeks that expressed interest in learning more about Bitcoin or teaching others more about Bitcoin to my Airbnb to talk to them.
One of the people interested was the Uber driver Napoleon.
Napoleon was one of them. There were 4 people that came that first day. 2 of them I never saw again.
After understanding Bitcoin, Napoleon saw how this could transform his country.
Esto es increíble porque recuerdo las primeras pláticas, o sea, era saber que hablábamos de algo grande, de lo que podría ser.
After seeing this reaction, John had a realization.
El Salvador is the first nation in the world to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. Whatever happens here will set a precedent, will be an example for the world to follow. And education will be the foundation of ensuring that that's a positive example.
But how can a country with a history like El Salvador be a positive example?
There's this perception that it's, one of the more dangerous places in the world because that used to be true.
Gangs, violence, and death.
Fairly recently, just like 5 or 6 years ago, it had one of the highest homicide rates of any country in the world.
The nation was dealing with numerous difficulties. They lost control over its money by adopting the US dollar, and they were facing problems with corruption and gang violence all over the country. The current president is implementing radical changes.
El Salvador is in a way like a phoenix rising from the ashes. It came from this terrible recent past, and now it's trying to create something not just on par with what is good by modern standards, but a whole new thing, a whole new world.
Because El Salvador didn't have their own currency, they depended a lot on US decisions. Many countries using the US dollar face the same lack of control over their economy. As soon as America changes its monetary policy, El Salvador is directly impacted. With Bitcoin, they were able to break free from this and gain financial independence again. But the locals were still asking, how does Bitcoin make my life better?
En nuestro país, la mayoría de nuestra gente no entiende de inflación.
Like most people in the global south, 79% of Salvadorians don't have any financial education.
Solo sabe que unos huevos que valían antes $3.50 hoy valen $6 y hay que trabajar más para comprar ese mismo cartón de huevos. No saben que en realidad lo que vale o lo que está dejando de valer es nuestro dinero, es el dinero fiat.
The financial system and Bitcoin are very complex topics, but especially when you never used a bank account before, like 70% of people there. So with this education missing, how should the El Salvadorians possibly ever understand what's happening to their country?
For the last week, wherever we have been, Napo actually taught so many El Salvadorian how to use Bitcoin, because even after 1.5 years now, there is so much more education to do.
To educate the locals, John started Mi Primer Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is a solution, but in order to understand the solution, you have to see the problem.
They created a curriculum which takes students from the beginning to the end to understand Bitcoin.
So this is the amazing part about Mi Primer Bitcoin, because they partnered with schools, like I'm here in El Salvador, to teach their curriculum about Bitcoin.
Napoleon actually became one of the main teachers of Mi Primer Bitcoin. He is traveling from school to school teaching the Bitcoin curriculum.
So in all of the schools that we work in, we tend to work with the oldest grades. So the students who are in their final year or their second to final year. So they're 15, 16, 17, 18.
And there is a reason for this.
Que el problema mayor iba a ser la gente de mayor edad. Entonces teníamos que empezar desde las bases, desde los niños.
They see this age group as the future of the country, hoping that these young people will understand how Bitcoin can help them to live a better future. The curriculum takes a total of 9 weeks.
So we spend the first 3 weeks just teaching people how the world works before we tell them how it could be better. They have to understand how it works now.
A nosotros se nos han ocurrido muchas ideas para poder mantener entretenido a los niños.
Mi Primer Bitcoin is turning education into a fun game. Kids have the opportunity to bet on chocolate using money. And as the game progresses, the amount of money in circulation increases. And the kids will notice that their money can buy less chocolate compared to the beginning of the game.
El juego es divertido, o sea, una manera muy entretenida y educativa y bromista, y es increíble. Pero el punto central es que entiende de qué se trata la inflación. Entre más dinero hay en la sociedad, menos valor tiene.
We want every teacher to teach the concepts with activities, because nothing gets to students precisely as examples and analogies.
Todas las clases fueron muy divertidas porque Mori las hacía dinámicas, siempre con un conocimiento que fuera más fácil para nosotros.
Through this approach, children learn everything they need to know before getting into the world of Bitcoin.
So behind me in this classroom right now is Napo giving another class, and he told me how crucial it is to really nail down the first contact with Bitcoin, because those kids never heard about Bitcoin before. I mean, yeah, maybe in the news, but they have no idea about it. So he's the first person who's gonna introduce them to this new digital asset, and therefore for him, he said, it's the most important thing to have this first impression right.
Most families of the students only know cash. They never use the internet to transfer money.
Week 5 is how to buy and how to store and move Bitcoin.
Here it is again about experiencing Bitcoin rather than just reading it on paper.
We give them a little bit of Bitcoin, and then they have to buy their own drink.
By this way, they can make sure that the kids really understand how they can use it in their daily lives.
Week 6 is Bitcoin as a payment network. Week 7 is about mining. 8 is about some economic theory behind Bitcoin. And then we finish the class with looking towards the future.
Everything Mi Primer Bitcoin is doing has the goal to enable the students to have a better future by using Bitcoin as a tool.
So all the students who were studying computer science at this school took a Bitcoin class. In another school, the students that are receiving the Bitcoin diploma are studying tourism.
Instead of telling the students how to use Bitcoin, they encourage them to find their own path.
Bitcoin is a tool to these people. To people like me, to people like the person sell mangoes in the street, to sell water in the street.
Most Salvadorians are more interested in practical solutions that Bitcoin brings.
For some, it is to accept Bitcoin as a payment.
I've seen like the little vendors out in the street already accepting Bitcoin.
Then there are others who want to have a savings account for the first time in their life.
Person say, okay, I'm gonna put $5 every month from my salary in Bitcoin, and then you bet whatever you have extra now.
You can give to these people, like to me, the opportunity to make savings.
Bitcoin can be a solution to many problems in a country like El Salvador.
Esto es real y a las personas que yo les he enseñado que Bitcoin es esto, han cambiado sus vidas de igual manera, han mejorado sus vidas.
We try to connect people to jobs, right? We try to connect them to better economic futures. For example, there is a proposal to get Bitcoin companies to move their call centers to El Salvador. The employees would be sourced from Bitcoin diploma graduates. You graduate and then you have a pathway to some economic opportunities.
This is the idea to change the economy of one country.
For every school that we say yes to, there's 4 that we say no to. There's a huge demand for this, and we're trying to scale as fast as possible. We literally doubled the number of locations, and it's not fast enough.
This is the beginning of Salvadorians understanding what Bitcoin does to their country.
Antes pensaba que Bitcoin no era tan como confiable y no sentía como interés, pero después de recibir las clases es como que sí, me despierta interés en mí el seguir practicando con eso. Es interesante y veo que es de mucha ayuda para el país.
While talking to those students, I really had the feeling that Bitcoin showed them some hope.
If you believe that you could build your own future and you begin that, then you actually improve your future.
I wanted to make a lot of people proud of this little piece of earth called El Salvador.
This is not only about El Salvador, because Bitcoin education is important for the whole world.
This is a movement, right? And the movement is as strong as the sum of its parts. I hope that people realize how important their support is, right? Like the people that come to the graduations, the people that donate a few sats. This is a big mission with a lot of different pieces. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to empower our students, but we want to empower everyone. We want to empower everyone to take control of their future.
Mi Primer Bitcoin educated 25,000 students in El Salvador so far, and all of their classes are free because they are supported by Bitcoin donations. And within the next year, they plan to educate more than 100,000 additional students. So if you think this is a cause worthwhile supporting, then feel free to send them some sats with those 2 QR codes here, because they are currently in the process of open sourcing all of their educational materials. They are working together with Bitcoin educators in 20 different nations. So as you can see, this is a huge project. And if you want to know more about it, you have all the links you need down below. So thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm gonna see you in the next video. Bye bye.